it looks like we win, right? That's it. Not so fast. Black has a very clever move, knight to b5. And they are ignoring the bishop because the point is that if we take the bishop, they're going to come in with the fork and win our rook. Okay, so what do you think the winning move in this position is after black plays the move knight to b5? What's up, guys? I have 3 clever puzzles for you today, starting with this one right here. White is going forward, black is going this way. It's white to play and win. If you would like to pause, what do you think the winning move for white is? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the first thing we should notice about this position is that black has a very serious threat here of pushing this pawn and getting a queen. And so whatever we do as white, we have to do pretty quickly. Also, black has a lot of pieces. 3 pieces is a lot, and generally speaking, it's better than a rook. So we have to act quickly. And so the move that we need to play is pawn to f7. And our threat is very simple. We would like to go and get a queen next move and then checkmate the king. So for example, if black ignores us and simply gets the queen here, we simply push the queen with check. Black has to move, and then we come over here to b8, and then queen to b6 is checkmate. Okay, so that's the immediate threat that black has to deal with. So going back here, when we play f7, this is not an option for black. They have to take the pawn with the bishop. The only other thing they could try would be knight to g6, thinking that if we take the knight, then they would take our pawn. However, that leaves rook a6 completely open, and that's just checkmate over here. All right, so because of that, black is obligated to take our pawn. So they take our pawn, and now if you would like to pause, what is the winning move for white in this position? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is not capturing the bishop. That's a big mistake. Even though a lot of times in chess, if you see a free piece, you should take it. In this case, it's not good enough because, like I mentioned, this pawn is going to become a queen, and now we just don't have anything. Black has a queen, 2 knights, all these pawns, and we don't have any checkmate. So what we need to play is the move rook to g4, and we don't really care about the knight. That's not why we're going here. We're going to g4 to threaten checkmate over here on a4, right? We would like to move our rook there and simply checkmate the black king. And notice if black tries to escape, this is still checkmate. So they can't move their king. They have to stop the checkmate some other way. And so what does black do? They play the move bishop to b3. And actually, I should point out, if they get the queen, it doesn't help. We still have checkmate, right? So that doesn't really save them. So they play the move bishop to b3, controls the square, and now we can no longer go there. So again, if you'd like, what should we play now as white? All right, well, if you looked at that, the move now is rook to g1. And again, we are threatening a checkmate on the king, and it's the same kind of situation. Black can't move the king. They actually need to move their knight, so they move it to c2 so that we can no longer go there with checkmate. And maybe you're starting to see the pattern, but what should we play next? All right, well, if you looked at that, the move is now rook to g5, and we are threatening yet another checkmate over here. Now, one thing I want to point out is, going back here, you might say, well, why don't we just play rook g5 right away? Well, check this out. If we play rook g5 immediately, black has knight to b3, and look at that. They control the square, and it turns out that we can no longer get checkmate. Right? If we try rook g4 now, they simply play knight to c5, and notice how this knight is getting in our way and controlling all of these squares, and ultimately black's going to be able to create some kind of defensive setup, and we can't get checkmate. So it's important, going back to the original position here after the bishop captures, that we play rook g4 because we need black to put the bishop on b3 so that the knight cannot go there. All right, so if you guys are tracking with me, let's keep going. So we come down here, we chase the knight to c2, and then we go back to g5 because now, how is black going to stop the checkmate? Well, they do that by playing the move d5. And again, if you would like to pause, this is one of the cool moments in the puzzle, and I would say a little bit tricky, but what move do we play now as white? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is not a rook move. Because if you look carefully, we can't really threaten checkmate anyway. If we go down here, it's already defended. If we go here, we just lose our rook. If we go here, that's not threatening anything. If we go here, it's already defended. If we take this, it's defended. If we go here, the knight captures us, and these don't really threaten anything. So the only move is king to b6, threatening checkmate this way. And how is black going to get out of it? Again, they can't move the king. It's still checkmate. So they have to play the move d4, unleashing the bishop to control that square so we can't go there. So again, what do we play now as white to finish off this game? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is king to c7. And it's really funny because our king was just there. We moved it to create this checkmate threat. But now that that checkmate threat is defended, we go back to where we were to create this checkmate threat again because the pawn has been pushed forward and can no longer block. And it turns out, if you look carefully, black has no way to stop this checkmate. There's just no good moves. The only thing they could do would be delay it by sacrificing a bunch of pieces like this. But ultimately, we still end up with a really nice checkmate. So the only way to win that position, just to recap, was moving the king back and forth like this. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. Don't forget the fen is down below if you want to play around with the position. You can check that out. But let's go ahead and jump over to the second position. All right, so here's the next position. Again, it's white to play and win. If you would like to pause, go ahead and do that. White's pawns are going this way. Black's pawns are going this way. All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, both players have the rook, the knight, and 3 pawns. However, white has this guy, which is about to become a queen in 2 moves, and that's actually white's best move. You push the pawn forward, threatening to become a queen. Now, of course, black doesn't want to allow that, so they play the move rook to b2, trying to stop your pawn. And now white has a fascinating move. If you would like to pause, what should white play here? All right, well, if you looked at that, the move is knight to b5. And yes, the knight can be captured 2 different ways. Both of them are bad for black. So, of course, if the king takes, that's pretty obvious. We get the queen, we skewer the rook, and black loses. If the rook takes, though, it looks like, okay, they took the knight, they're about to take the pawn, they're controlling the queening square. What could we possibly do? We have the amazing rook takes d5, which pins the rook. So it can no longer take our pawn, and if it takes our rook, we simply get the queen now because it has the rook has been lured away and can no longer control the queening square. Okay, so and any other move that black does doesn't really matter. We're going to trade the rooks and then we get the queen after that. Okay, so that's the idea, knight to b5. However, black says, okay, I see what the trick is, and they play the move knight to h4, setting a trap of their own. And what's the trap? Well, if we push this and get a queen, we lose because now black comes down here and we are getting back rank checkmated. We can block and then the game is over. So that's black's idea. What should we play instead of getting the queen? All right, well, if you looked at that, the move is simply rook to d1. It's a very straightforward move, controlling the back rank so that black can no longer come down here and checkmate us. However, black has another trick up their sleeve, and it's the move knight to f3. And again, they are setting up checkmate on h2, and our king is actually stuck. We can't go anywhere. So what do we play in this position? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is rook to a1 check. And what we are doing is forcing black's king to move from the a file onto the b file. Now, they have 3 choices. This one, we just get the queen with check, and we're going to have checkmated a few moves. If they take the knight, same thing. We get the queen, and then we win the rook, and we win. But if they play king to b4, it's not really clear what we should play now. Because again, black has the same checkmate threat on h2. Moving this pawn doesn't help us. They still checkmate us over here with this really nice, I forget the name of this pattern, but the knight and the rook, you know, are a nice combo when the king is in the corner. So what should we play in this position after black plays king to b4? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is the amazing rook to b1. And it looks ridiculous to give up a rook with check. Like, why would we ever do that? The point is that after the capture, we simply play king to g2. And the point is we are still threatening to get the queen. And black has too many pieces in the way for the rook to be effective. Even if they take this, we get the queen and we win. And if they move around, they don't have time, we're going to get the queen. So what does black do? Well, they're not done yet. They play the move rook to g1 check. We take the knight, and then they come all the way down and they stop the pawn that way. And it's looking pretty good for black. They've got the rook, they've got the king pressuring the knight, they're controlling the queening square. What could we possibly do? If you would like to pause, what is white's best move? There's only one winning move. All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is knight to a7. And it's a dual purpose move. Number one, if the black rook tries to come over and take our pawn, notice we have this fork knight to c6, and we're winning the rook, and then ultimately winning the game. This is a winning endgame. And the other point behind this move is that if black, let's just say, deals with the fork, sorry, by moving the king like here, we have knight to c8, blocking the rook and getting ready to get a queen like this. And again, black is losing. They can't stop us from getting a queen. So that's a really nice finish. Now, it's interesting because Stockfish finds a problem with this study, and it happens right after king to g2. So the main line from this composition was rook to g1, and then the line that I showed you, right, which is pretty nice. Nice finish for white. However, Stockfish says you play the move knight to d4, and you allow white to get the queen, and then you take the knight, and Stockfish says this is a draw. There's a rook, a knight, the pawns. Somehow it believes it's a draw. Now, is it actually a draw? I don't know. Stockfish could be wrong. I didn't let it analyze and study this position in depth. It looks very good for white because not only do you have the queen, you have this passed h-pawn, which looks like it's going to be really difficult for black to stop. However, black does have the d-pawn, and I don't know, maybe there's some sort of fortress that black can set up to ultimately hold the draw. Anyway, that's what Stockfish believes. But let me know what you guys think. I don't actually know the answer to that. But in the puzzle, like I mentioned, king to g2, this was the main line, which is a pretty nice finish. All right, guys, let's jump over to the last position, which is right here. It is white to play and win. As a reminder, this pawn is going forward. White to play and win. What move do you think white should play? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the only winning move for white is the move rook to a1. And at first glance, it's like, what are we doing? Well, we're threatening checkmate, but you might say, but black can just move the king and run away, and it's no longer checkmate. But we're also threatening rook to c1. And look at this. Notice the pieces are lined up, and we're going to win one. Even though black can save the bishop with check, we move over, and we still have a double attack. One of the pieces is going to be captured, and then it's a pretty easy win. So that's the idea. However, black says, you know what? I'm not going to move my king because I see what's happening. I'll play bishop to b7 instead, controlling that square and getting out of the double attack here. So what do we play in this position? Rook to a7. And again, we have the same idea. We're lining up on both of the pieces, and it looks like black's going to lose a piece. Now, there's one interesting move here, bishop to d5 check, but we can simply play king to f6 and check out the knight, and notice it is pinned, and we are still winning a piece, and it's a pretty easy win. So it looks like we win, right? That's it. Not so fast. Black has a very clever move, knight to b5. And they're ignoring the bishop because the point is that if we take the bishop, they're going to come in with the fork and win our rook. Okay, so what do you think the winning move in this position is after black plays the move knight to b5? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is rook takes b7 anyway. And I know what you're thinking. Nelson, you just told us there's a fork. And there is a fork. And that's what black's going to do. And then they're going to take our rook. But then we have a follow-up move here. If you'd like to pause, what's the move for white? Wait for it. The move is b4. And I want you to look very carefully at this and this and this. And look at this knight. It is completely trapped. It has nowhere to go. And we simply slide our king over, slide our king over. And again, we are still attacking the knight. We're still controlling these escape squares. And black is forced to give up the knight and ultimately go into this losing king and pawn endgame. We push our pawn, we slide our king over, and this guy becomes a queen and we win. So super nice knight trap with a king and a pawn. Not something that you see every day, but it's good enough to get the win. And I hope you guys appreciated those positions. But anyway, I'll see you next time. And as always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.